Hello everyone, and welcome back to Dragalia Foundry, a fan channel where everything Dragalia Lost can be found. This video is my first look at the Agito Uprising, specifically Volk's Wrath, the fight that is currently out right now. There's a standard as well as an expert difficulty available for this fight, and they are quite different, including some spoilery things for the expert fight. So I'm going to start off with a couple of standard clears with my solo team here, and then at the end of the video I will share the closest I have come in expert. It's a timeout clear that got very close at the very end, but I still have not cleared expert yet, so I'm not able to share a clear of that at this point. Still, I wanted to make a video about Agito because I've had a lot of fun with this series of boss fights. I was concerned going into this that if we were just going to experience additional boss fights like the High Dragon Trials, that wouldn't be very exciting or very invigorating to me. I wanted something that was slightly different, that could keep me engaged with Dragalia Lost as a player who had already cleared the rest of the content. And I have to say, I feel like the devs did an excellent job with Agito in surprising us, in shaking things up, and in addressing a lot of the concerns that the player base had when it came to the High Dragon Trials. So I want to break down a little bit of why I think Agito Uprising is a cool new mode, some of the ways I think it succeeds, and the first I want to mention is a little bit broader in concept. It's actually related to the version update as a whole, but as of this update with Agito, the game has become much more interesting, I think, from a meta standpoint because of how many more characters are viable for this content, and for past content because of the Mana Spiral update. So thanks to the Mana Spiral, a lot of 3-star characters in the Flame element, a couple 4-star and a couple 5-star characters who were previously not very relevant are now super awesome, very powerful. They require a lot of investment to build up to a 70 node unit and a level 100 unit, but once you get there, they are awesome. So I think they've done a great job of leveling the playing field between some previously powerful characters and now some of these new characters who have gotten this recent power upgrade. That's one of the first things I want to mention that I think this mode and the update does right. We're seeing units like Xania, we're seeing adventurers like Naveed and Ezlith, Yuden, play prominent roles in a lot of the best clears of expert difficulty. And so I think that's really awesome just to have the mode open up. And another way that Agito does that specifically is that there is a role for both sleep and stun res adventurers to play in this fight. We'll see in just a moment, but the underdog scheme move that Volk unleashes, he sets red and green traps on the battlefield, and you can detonate them early if you have the right affliction resistance without getting slept or stunned respectively. So you want to detonate those early, otherwise he will unleash them in a large explosion that deals a lot of damage. And for that reason, it tends to be the case that team comps want both stun res and sleep res characters. It's a pretty cool way of implementing things, and just generally speaking, the mechanics feel very fresh in this fight. Another thing I want to comment on, besides just opening up the fight to more adventurers, is that this fight definitely rewards skilled play, but without the feeling that if you get hit one time, the run is over. You don't easily get one shot in this fight, and although if you're a ranged unit you can get one shot, it's definitely not on the level of the High Dragon Trials where there's certain moves like the Gale Blast or Tidal Call that if you mess up, the whole run is potentially over. In this case, the way that this rewards skilled play is that basically every time that you get damaged, if you don't have that plague aura around you, Volk will steal some of your HP. And so the more times you let yourself get hit, or your team lets itself get hit as a whole, the harder it is going to be to clear the fight because Volk is going to be healing up. So it actually rewards dodging in a pretty smart way, and it also rewards healing in a new way. And that was another concern that players have had for a while, is healers really didn't have as prominent a role to play because they were either really good at healing, or in some cases, like with Vaniel, they were just right, just had the perfect amount of healing to do what they needed, but not any extra healing. And so this is a fight where your healing actually starts to diminish that plague effect, that small aura with the picture of a spore that forms around you. And third, that effect is very, very interesting for this fight. That effect makes it so that regardless of your affliction resistance, you can get affected by stun, sleep, and even poison in this battle. So that's another way I think that they've made this really interesting. It's not just a matter of having 100% resistance and you can easily get off free with any status afflicting moves. That actually makes you think a little bit and position yourself, and healers can start to reduce that circle. So now we are here in Expert, and this is the run where I got pretty close to clearing. When I first started playing Expert, I thought to myself, this isn't so bad, we're dealing a lot of damage, there's a lot of time on the clock, and the HP bar doesn't look too huge. But we were in for a surprise, as you will see as we continue on. I'm just trying to deal as much damage as I can, but the first part of this fight, he's pretty mobile and doesn't stay in one place for long. There I was tapping my third skill, but it wasn't actually fully charged. It looks like it, but it's not, so I was paused for a moment. I think that in the first part of this fight, higher mobility characters with shorter iframes tend to do a little bit better. It's a little bit easier to play them, but there is a second part which is really the bulk of the fight, where having longer iframes is actually kind of a good thing for a lot of the attacks that come out, and that means characters like Reyna, like Ramona, Ezolith can all do very well in that portion. Here we're in this Black Mist, this Resentment. There's lots of area of effect moves coming out at once. Typically, some of these moves are going to target your nearest and farthest units. I think the purple one targets the farthest, while the red one targets the nearest. Although I have to admit, I haven't played this enough to really have that firmly pinned down. But we are just trying to not get hit by any of these if we can avoid it, because getting hit causes plague, and once you're plagued, additional hits can stun or sleep you. But, as you can see, once we got the HP of the boss down to 0, he actually shapeshifts into another form. And I'm not sure if this is a dragon, if it's a werewolf, if it's related to the Chimera perhaps, if it's a vampire, because as I said, Volk drains your life, which feels very vampiric to do. But this was a huge shock when it happened, and the music just turns into overdrive literally as the boss enters overdrive almost immediately upon transformation. And at this point, his attacks are way more telegraphed, they're way less speedy, but he's also very, very bulky and pretty hard to take down. So anytime that you're letting yourself get hit by accident, you are going to be healing up that boss unless you happen to have the plague effect on you, in which case he can't drain your health. So you do have to be careful about dodging here, and every additional hit you take or let yourself take is going to make the fight substantially harder. So our goal right now is just to try to deal as much damage as we can without getting hit. There are some some wolves that get spawned, which is pretty cool because it gives relevance to abilities like Slayer's Strength. Although I wouldn't suggest targeting the wolves, but I at least like that they're there, because it does feel kind of bad when there's some effects that just don't get used at all in endgame content. Now there's at least the possibility of that, which I like and appreciate. Here, not only do we have to avoid these red lines, but also the boss's swipe attacks, those 270-degree attacks that happen one after the other. And our goal here is to try to break relatively quickly after this resentment phase. The boss is going to do something called a life steal, which is a screen-wide, unavoidable HP drain effect. Steal Vitality is the name. Ideally, we would break to interrupt it. We're not able to do that, but we still want to try break as quickly as we can, because if we don't break here, what normally happens is the boss will spawn 4 tornadoes of that size that you see there, 1 for each player. And thankfully, because we break barely in the nick of time, it looks like only 1 tornado spawned. If you break earlier than that, you can avoid those tornadoes spawning at all until later in the fight when there's only a couple of them on the furthest units, the ranged units typically. So that was a good break time for us. And for the beginning of the fight as well, you want to be able to enter phase 2 by the end of Resentment, that black mist. If you're able to enter around that time, or at least before Volk teleports away, that's a pretty good sign your DPS is within reason to potentially clear. So, not that I've cleared yet, but this part was another big shocker to me. So, Lunatic Judgment, Volk takes on this awesome different pose, the perspective shifts, he summons a blood moon that he's about to collapse on the entire arena, and you already know if that thing falls down, everybody is going to be taken out. So we used our dragons, we used as many skills as we could there. Volk gets off another lifesteal after that, meaning he's still got a lot of HP left to take down, but basically that blood moon will end your run if you're not able to eliminate it. It will knock everybody out, and furthermore, that's not the only time he's going to use that move. So at this point, we are just trying to deal whatever damage that we can. Volk still has a lot of HP left, so it's looking kind of questionable here whether we're able to clear. But he introduces another Resentment at this point, and I'm not using my skills because I'm charging them up, I'm trying to save them up. A Blood Moon is about to come out, and I'm going to unleash my skills. Now with this second Blood Moon, I've seen it sometimes where normal adventure skills don't damage it, and only dragon skills damage it. I think that it's probably a glitch, or maybe it was a targeting issue where I was targeting him but not the Blood Moon, but there it looks like we're able to get off the DPS we needed in any case. However, we only have 10 seconds left to be able to clear. There's still a decent chunk of HP left. Cerise probably got taken out by a wolf or something at the end, and it really wouldn't have mattered either way. So we ended up failing that run, but it was still a blast to get that close. I am really enjoying Agito Uprising and am going to keep playing it, try to get those expert clears. One last note that I want to mention is if you are considering what to do with the rewards you get from the standard difficulty, I would suggest spending them on the Flame Tree. The Flame Tree is a new facility from Agito that you can level up to 15, and it's going to boost the stats of your Flame Adventurers. That's going to make your grinding in Expert a lot easier compared to getting a 6-star weapon. It's kind of either or because you only get enough of the golden level materials to either craft a 6-star weapon or level up your facility to the max, at least until you're able to farm Expert. One good thing that they did was you do get the gold materials from standard for your first clear, which is awesome, as well as from your weekly clears, but you only get one golden material per clear. So if you want to grind up your statue just using standard, it's going to take a long time if you spend your resources on a 6-star weapon. So I would suggest going for that Flame Tree instead of making that 6-star weapon for now. The 6-star weapons, I'm also pretty happy with how those turned out. They're a side grade, effectively, to the tier 2 weapons for the time being, although once you're able to max and bind them, I do think they are probably quite a bit better because of the good skill that they have. Their skill, when max and bounds, gives you a permanent 20% strength buff, which you can alternate. If you use it the second time, it's going to give you a permanent regen buff until you use it again, then it'll switch back to a strength buff. Considering their stats are already on par with the tier 2 dragon weapons when you max level them, they are very good when max and bound, but realistically, in order to max and bind them, you're going to need to play through standard. You're probably going to need to max level or high level your Flame Tree, and then you can use your tier 2 high dragon weapons to grind experts and slowly craft and build up and power up those 6-star weapons. So I don't think it necessarily changes the normal progression path very much. Probably still want to be taking on Master High Dragon Trials before you work on Expert Agito, but still, I like that there's more variety. There's a little bit more weapon choice now. I think that's pretty cool, and if you are somebody who plans to farm standard for a long time and you don't have a tier 2 dragon weapon, well, maybe you even take that free 6-star weapon from your first clear so that your standard grinding gets a little bit easier. Alright everyone, that's all I want to say for this video. Thank you so much for watching, take care, and I'll see you next time.